BBC Two. Friday night programs continue with Westminster at Work.
The great Italian composer Claudio Monteverdi was born 400 years ago, and tonight we join viewers in Italy for a live performance of his music introduced in Venice by the American musicologist H.C. Robbins Landon.
This is BBC Two. Now Bob Harris introduces this week's edition of the Old Grey Whistle Test. BBC Two. Now real time. In this week's programme, people from North Devon talk about the influence of television on their lives. And now it's almost 28 minutes past midnight. Tomorrow evening at 7:35, BBC Two welcomes Delia Smith and her cookery programme Family Fare. Each Friday she'll be preparing some simple and attractive dishes, and she begins by introducing us to what she calls convertible dishes. Dishes that are fairly quick and cheap to make, and yet can be jazzed up to grace even the smartest dinner table. Family Fare is tomorrow at 7:35. Then, 10 minutes later, at 7:45, Heritage, a series of programmes providing a spectacular and colourful look at some of Britain's most impressive ceremonies and places of interest. In tomorrow's programme, Robert Hardy visits the Royal Mews at Buckingham Palace, where, in a unique village atmosphere, are stabled the famous Windsor Grey and Cleveland Bay horses. The splendid carriages and the state cars are kept here also, including the magnificent glass coach which will be used for the wedding of Princess Anne. A visit to the Royal Mews in Heritage on BBC Two tomorrow at 7:45. And now this is John Glover wishing you a very good night. Good night, everyone.
Now the time is almost 25 past 4. The Open University begins at 5:25. Until then, the test card and tone.
Now, look, stranger, at a film called Wildlife in the Back Bedroom, which is introduced by Eric Morecambe. And now we move off in a westerly direction to meet the Waltons.
On Thursday evening, there's a rather special show of the week. The other day, I spoke to one of its stars, Ernie Wise, who'd brought along a friend.
All experiments shown in tonight's episode have been simulated.
Well, now it's 11 o'clock and time on BBC Two for Play School, introduced by Delia Morgan and Don Spencer.
Well, there's the clock, and we've come to the end of another day here on BBC Two. However, before we head for home, let me just remind you that, of course, there's music throughout the night on radios 1 and 2. At the moment, Brian Matthew is presenting music and conversation in Round Midnight, and then at 2 o'clock, Len Jackson comes along with You and the Night and the Music. But, as I said, it's time now for us here on BBC Two to wish you a very good night, and thank you for being with us. Good night.
Here on Two now, the weekly grilling for the panel of musical buffs, Face the Music, is once again painlessly conducted by Joseph Cooper.
In 60 Minutes on 2, the original feature film of MASH, starring Donald Sutherland. That's after the Old Grey Whistle Test, live from the Rainbow Theatre, London, where we're about to join Radio 1 in stereo for the Kinks' Christmas concert.
BBC Two. Now Mavis Nicholson talks to a young married couple who voluntarily work with probation officers in rehabilitating ex-prisoners.
Now on BBC Two, Ronald Eyre visits Romania in The Long Search.
A look ahead now to programmes for tomorrow.
BBC Two takes off next week with 3 new programmes.
Well, here on 2, we continue our season of musical comedies with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in Carefree.
Well, now it's almost 2 minutes to 1, and as we're well into Monday morning, it's time to close here on 2 for tonight. But as we go, a reminder that our colleagues over on BBC Radio 2 have plenty more to offer you right through the night. There's a good hour of Ray Moore with his late show until 2 o'clock, and then the delightful Chris Aldred, You and the Night and the Music, until 5 o'clock. But now, from me, Andy Cartledge, and all of us here on BBC 2, a very good night. Good night.
With those 2 films, BBC Two now comes to the end of another evening. If it's animated conversation you'd like, may I recommend Brian Matthews' Miss Elodie for the midweek on Radio 2, around midnight of course, and it's on the air till 1 o'clock. But now, from all of us working on BBC Two tonight, this is Mark Waddington at Television Centre in London, wishing you, especially if you're on your own, a very peaceful night to you. Good night.
Bob Kilby's broadcasting at the moment, and just after 2 o'clock Liz Allen takes over for You, the Night and the Music. That's BBC Radio 2. Now, on behalf of all of us here on BBC 2 at the Television Centre in London, it just remains for me to wish you a very good night. Good night. In 5 minutes, Owen Owl Hughes introduces the much-loved music show and conducts the work of popular composers ranging from Bach to Wagner. Now, the news on 2 with Angela Rippon.
Now is 4 minutes to 1. On Radio 2 at the moment, Brian Matthew is your host until just after 2, when James Alexander Gordon will be providing the links between you and the night and the music. But now, this is John Glover on behalf of everyone here at Television Centre in London, wishing you a very good night. Good night to you.
Programmes tomorrow evening on BBC Two begin at 6:55 with country music from Tammy Wynette. Then at 7.
This Monday on BBC Two, Wendy...
So, now on 2, we tidy up the loose ends in the last part of The Long Search with Ronald Eyre.
Here on to The Beatles at Christmas. Tonight's presentation takes us back to the summer of 1965 when Beatlemania took America by storm with The Beatles at Shea Stadium.
But now, with the strains of cabaret still ringing in our ears, we bring the festivities here on BBC Two this Christmas Day to a close. Boxing Day lies ahead, of course, when we look forward to your joining us here on Two for lots more holiday entertainment. Meanwhile, from me, Andrew Cartledge, and all my colleagues working here at the Television Centre in London, very best wishes for the remainder of Christmas, and now a peaceful good night. Good night.
Back to this evening now on 2 for Man Alive.
Programmes tonight here on 2 continue in a moment with the world about us. Then
to Christmas Matinee, the toast of New Orleans.
In complete contrast, let me just remind you that at 7:15 tomorrow evening over on BBC One, David Coleman will be the commentator for the replay of the FA Cup final match between Spurs and Manchester City. That's tomorrow at 7:15. But now the time is just after 11:30, coming up to 29 minutes to midnight, the end of this evening here on BBC Two. And we're going to leave you tonight with the theme from a new record just called Themes. This is the Canon Suite from the film Ordinary People. From me, Robin Whitting, in the Television Centre, a very good night to you. Good night.
And the time is 4 minutes past midnight. We put BBC Two to bed tonight with a little soft music for a hot summer's evening. And this is John Glover wishing you a very good night. Good night to you.
Merry, 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 merry Christmas. La 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 la.
Greetings and good morning from BBC Two. In 2 minutes, Carol Chell and Ben Bazell will be here with Play School. So,
And that play tomorrow night on 2, Out of Step, which I just mentioned, is being discussed by the author, Carol Bunyan, right now on Radio 2. She's just starting an interview with Brian Matthew on his Round Midnight programme. So now, with the time 14¼ minutes past midnight, we've come to the end of our night on BBC Two. I hope you'll join us again sometime during tomorrow evening. Meanwhile, this is Peter Bolgar on behalf of all of us here on 2, wishing you a very good night. Good night.
a very good afternoon. It's Christmas Eve, and as you see, time for us to unveil BBC Two's Christmas decoration for this year. Well, we'll be seeing it again in a moment. That's just before the first of our...
Now on to Going to Work, with a look at the meaning of job satisfaction to the young.
Good afternoon and a very happy Christmas from all of us here on BBC Two. And a Christmas Eve matinee begins our day in just under 5 minutes with Alistair Sim and Kathleen Harrison in the classic film version of Charles Dickens' immortal tale, A Christmas Carol, Scrooge.
A choice of films for your entertainment this Christmas on BBC Two. A choice of films for this Christmas on BBC Two.
New on 2 next week up. Christmas Day on BBC Two. At 6:05, Tchaikovsky.
Well, the time is almost 21 minutes past midnight. And this is John Glover in London wishing you a very good night. Good night to you. It's 9 minutes past midnight. And we reach that time when I suppose in many homes up and down the country, Santa Claus, no doubt fortified by a mince pie and a glass of sherry, is struggling into his outfit, ready to fill the stockings of sleeping youngsters. Or whether you're surrounded by family or by yourself, whatever you're doing and wherever you are, may I, on behalf of all my colleagues here at Television Centre in London, wish you a very happy and peaceful Christmas.
BBC Two's feature films this some of the films for Christmas on BBC Two.
Which we begin now by looking at the rise to stardom of one of the cartoon greats, Bugs Bunny. What's up, Chuck?
Now, at the time at 5:25, the news summary from Olivia O'Leary. So now we join Pete Morgan on his voyage to the north, along the grain run.
Thank you, and good night, John. Well, now that he's worn that on national television, that's one present John won't be able to take back. So far as the rest of us here on BBC Two are concerned, we're ready to climb into our respective night gear. So from me, David Miles, on behalf of Fiona, Alan, Mark and Graham working in our control room, may I wish you a peaceful night and a very happy Boxing Day. Good night.
Here on 2, it's time to settle back in our seats to enjoy the Minnelli musical story of An American in Paris.
A very good morning to you, and may I be the first today to wish you a very happy Christmas from BBC Two.
Here on 2, one of Dickens' most famous works receives a musical treatment from Lionel Bart in the award-winning film Oliver.
This is BBC Two. And now we have the famous story of one who loved not wisely but too well and threw a pearl away richer than all his tribe. Placido Domingo stars as the tragic Moor in Zeffirelli's screen version of Verdi's opera, Otello.
A different relationship and a different setting now on 2, with the first showing on British television of the poetic Norwegian production The Ice Palace, part of the London Film Festival.
Back to this afternoon, and now on 2 we begin our trilogy of works by the celebrated French author Marcel Pagnol. Continued over the next 2 days, we begin a study of life and love in the harbour district of Marseille with the television premiere of Marius.
Well, our Christmas Day on 2 opens with a film musical which stars Mickey Rooney as a suffering adolescent and Gloria de Haven as the cause of his anguish. Summer Holiday.
Now on BBC Two, David Attenborough offers a rare insight into a little-known species, the unsung band of naturalists whose immense knowledge and dedication made possible his remarkable series The Trials of Life. Once more, into the termite mound.
This is BBC Two. Now we continue our Indian tale of love and war, Mahabharat. Now on BBC Two, we travel to the Guildhall, Preston, for the second day of the World Indoor Bowls Championship.
This is BBC Two, where now we survey the highs and lows on the weather front with Bernard Davey. First on BBC Two, a musical genre provides the inspiration for John Sessions, flexing his more than generous gift of the gab on another tall tale. First on BBC Two, Rhythms of the World chronicles the rise and influence of China's biggest rock star, Sui Zhen, musical spokesman for a young generation striving for liberty. This is BBC Two. Now the Film Club continues its Polish season with a highly acclaimed work in condemnation of the police state. Director Krzysztof Kieślowski presents Interrogation.
This is BBC Two. Now, looking far into the future, we join the next generation of Star Trek.
Captain's log, stardate 426.
Before that on BBC Two, all the latest fireworks safety.
This is BBC Two bringing you highlights of tonight's play in the World Professional Darts with Doogie Donnelly.
Moment though, just a reminder, if you're looking for more entertainment, Radio 2 of course is on the air all through the night. Len Jackson is off on his night ride at the moment and he'd be very pleased to have you along. But from all of us here at the Television Centre in London working on BBC 2 tonight, this is David Allen thanking you for your company and wishing you a very good night. Good night.
Now on BBC Two, fully clothed in a mantle of probing curiosity and thoughtful scepticism, Clive James welcomes tonight's guest for interview.
In 40 minutes, here on 2, Newsnight has the latest news from the Gulf as the fighting continues in Kuwait. First, we begin a new series of Taking Liberties as David Jessel investigates a human tragedy that won't go away, the B word.
Here on BBC Two now, we continue our series offering a variety of perspectives on one of the most colourful and fascinating countries of the Orient, Japan, its language and its people.
And here on 2, we begin a new series of personal views of the English with best-selling author Sue Townsend, who takes a close look at our shy, yet oddly obsessive attitude towards the human body. Think of England.
So, our moving pictures sequence reaches a frightening climax, supported by powerful photography in John Brahms' 1945 melodrama, Hangover Square.
Every perfect Christmas draws to a close with a chilling ghost story, so BBC Two has dug up one of the most eerie from the archive vaults. From 1976, starring Denham Elliott, The Signalman. Now on to a classic movie to end our classic television Christmas, starring Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Private Eye Philip Marlowe puts together the pieces of a complex mystery in The Big Sleep. And now our perfect Christmas on 2 takes us to 1974 and a familiar junkyard somewhere in West London. Christmas is coming and Harold is already thoroughly fed up with the festivities. Turkey sandwiches, Christmas cake, cups of tea and Christmas night with the stars. For 15 years it was a British tradition to curl up on Christmas night with the stars of that year's BBC variety. For a perfect Christmas, we've unearthed a choice example from 1964, hosted by Britain's favourite copper, Jack Warner. As time is always tight in the run-up to Christmas, why not get all your Christmas TV viewing over and done with in just half an hour, in a stocking full of Christmas clichés? First, a compilation of the very best of the Morecambe and Wise Christmas shows. A rare festive episode not seen since 1958 of Hancock's Half Hour.
But to get a picture of what's happening right now, we need to have a look at our weather balloon stationed somewhere over northern France in High Pressure Heroes.
As part of the BBC Two One World season, an environmental report now, which confronts the problems caused by industrial pollution.
First, BBC Two commissions a designer interior to provide the setting for tonight's dance house. An artist's journey to Oslo for BBC Two now, the next stage in our commissions and collaboration season. There, American Jim Dine builds up a picture of the real Edvard Munch through his painting.
To continue the War and Peace season now on to a different aspect on experience of war, the choice of the conscientious objector.
Now on to Billy Wilder's classic and atmospheric thriller about an insurance salesman, a femme fatale, and double indemnity.
A very good morning from BBC Two, December the 24th, Christmas Eve. And before our first film of the morning, we're just going to open another door on the Advent calendar.
And the After Margaret season continues now with excerpts from the diaries of an unusual cross-section of the rich and famous, and the not-so-rich or famous. Dateline November 22nd, 1990.
In half an hour, the agony of unrequited love in Straight Through the Heart. But first, you are sharing a night of love on the eve of St. Valentine's with BBC Two, the sensation station.
This is Birth Night on BBC Two. Now, Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes star in Roman Polanski's cult horror film Rosemary's Baby, a nightmare journey into witchcraft and Satanism in New York. On its original release in 1968, one critic suggested that pregnant women should see it at their own risk. Let that be a warning.
A chance to see a famous television barrister making his first appearance now on BBC Two in A Play for Today, originally shown in 1975. And who better to introduce him than his creator?
Now, from BBC Two's Crime and Punishment season, Shaw Taylor hosts an entire evening dedicated to cops on the box.
Now on BBC Two, we eavesdrop on the gritty lives of those 6 students sharing a house in Manchester.
There's Trouble at the Mill now on BBC Two in the film starring Will Fife and Stanley Holloway, Cotton Queen.
Now BBC Two takes to the saddle on Christmas morning in the company of John Wayne for some western adventure in Rio Lobo.
On with BBC Two's birthday party now, and David Attenborough's favourite programmes from 3 decades. A very good morning to you and welcome to Christmas Eve on BBC Two.
Now on BBC Two, Newsnight.
Monday night on BBC Two.
Pain and Pleasure, Tuesdays on BBC Two.
Arabian Nights and Turkish Delights now on BBC Two. The Travel Show.
In search of bright lights in a big city, only to discover violence and corruption. Alain Delon stars in Luchino Visconti's epic family saga, Rocco and His Brothers.
You're watching BBC Two.
Unleashing late-night terror now on BBC Two. The Americans knew it as the most dangerous game. Here in Britain, we call it the Hounds of Zaroff. But whatever the name, the horror's the same. And you run when there's a madman after you.
Hello and welcome to Christmas Eve on BBC Two, and this morning's programmes kick off with Children's BBC.
BBC Two has a 3-step cure for that sun.
Wednesday evening on BBC.
Now on BBC Two, a gala concert from the Royal Albert Hall in London, paying tribute to the violinist Yehudi Menuhin, who celebrated his 80th birthday earlier this year.
Hello, a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to the Learning Zone through the night here on BBC Two.
Always considered the home of aliens, secrets of the Red Planet revealed now on BBC Two in a special Open Saturday, live from Mars with Howard Stableford and Anna Grayson.
Well, for once, Bart might have to keep quiet about something. The Simpsons is in 15 minutes here on BBC Two, after we check out the week's music news in the Ozone.
definitely not politically correct now on BBC Two widescreen, a new series of the comedy quiz where every rule is well and truly broken.
Coming back from the wild for a new series now on BBC Two, it's The Animal Zone.
This is BBC Two in widescreen. Sit back on your sofa and relax. Or maybe not.
Vintage laughs first here on BBC Two. It's GCSE Bite-Sized French coming up in 10 minutes on BBC Learning Zone.
Straddling the hills of County Mayo, another wilderness walk in half an hour. First on BBC Two, have your reading glasses handy.
This is BBC Two. A very good morning to you. The brand spanking new look BBC Two gets underway in just a tick with the first of a Robert Young double bill. Miracles. First on BBC Two, a wronged war veteran tries to prove his innocence. The Saturday matinee begins with I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang.
All those Christmas goodies to come here on BBC Two. Just a reminder though, BBC News 24 is on BBC One throughout the night. But for now, here on BBC Two, it's time for us to say goodnight. And of course, on behalf of Cliff, Sam and Kip, this is Manju Mali wishing you a happy Christmas. And we hope you join us again tomorrow. When things get festive, the kids get restive. Now on BBC Two, Gina McKee and Kate Mabley head an all-star cast in tonight's wicked comedy drama, Mother Time. Coming up in 5 minutes, Mother Time, starring Gina McKee. Before that, BBC Two is looking forward to the new year and a season of top new programmes. A bittersweet musical tale of young love denied. Now on BBC Two, Catherine Deneuve stars in The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Oi! Keep that slamming down! We're trying to watch a bloody film here!
You wait till that curry comes back, mate. To avoid that, then BBC Two returns to Patrick Stewart. Oh, blimey, Charlie. Don't let them distract you, Patrick. Oh, bless, it's just too emotional. Fortunately, Patrick Stewart's too much of a professional to let it get to him. Well, whilst they change the nappies, sounds lovely that, me and you can rejoin Patrick Stewart.
Citizen Kane. Favourite films, his movie acting masterclass, and the odd Frank tribute, all to come, introduced by Britain's nosiest neighbour.
Powerful performances for BBC Two in widescreen from Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. Condemned to a living hell, one man holds on to his dream of a flight for freedom. Papillon.
Ingenuity with added chainsaws in 25 minutes on BBC Two in Robot Wars. First, Bart becomes Springfield's most famous 10-year-old. Or is that infamous?
BBC Two, Christmas Eve, Bogart and Big Call. What could be better?
Getting romantic now on BBC Two. In the second of our Frank Sinatra films, he plays a musician who's young at heart.
She wanted nothing more than to be a glamorous film star with a leopard skin rug. Arena profiles Britain's own blonde bombshell now on BBC Two, Diana Dawes.
Now on BBC Two, Anton Deck and Friends.
There's more to most of us than first meets the eye, and on BBC Two now, Betty Boothroyd is no exception. Michael Cockle investigates.
A gifted young doctor makes a royal error now on BBC Two. Robert Downey Jr., Meg Ryan and Sam Neill in the Oscar winner Restoration, showing in widescreen.
The Ozone meet the All Saints and Jay-Z in 45 minutes on BBC Two. First, Vecchio's in love. And I thought it was women who always fell for the bad ones. First, a supernatural tour de force in the chilling nightmare at Hill House. Out of sight isn't always out of mind. The Haunting.
Strap yourself in now on BBC Two for 10 billion years in 9 minutes. Our own news here on BBC Two at 10, and it may be old, but it still hurts. Up to the Ocky now on BBC Two to Frimley Green for tonight's 2 quarter-final matches in the World Darts, introduced by Ray Stubbs. Terror's real and imagined now on BBC Two, but at least one team have God on their side. They'll need it. Bare Necessities starts a new series in the dark woods of Transylvania. Oh, and veggies, watch out for the chicken sacrifices and pig's blood.
You're watching BBC Two. Energize.
Destructive forces on Farscape in 25 minutes. This is BBC Two with strings attached.
This is BBC Two.
A spot of detective work now on BBC Two in English Express.
A classic John Ford Western starring John Wayne tonight. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon is at 6:05. A taut thriller now for BBC Two. John Mills and Richard Attenborough in a life and death struggle beneath the waves in Morning Departure.
Welcome to BBC 4 on BBC 2.
Curb Your Enthusiasm coming up, but first a sneak preview of what's to come.
Behind the scenes of India's answer to EastEnders, a new series of Bombay Blush at 11:30 after the mystery deepens in The X-Files on BBC Two now.
Top of the Pumps 2, full of regal moments from our youth in 20 minutes. Now, BBC Two's full-on family. Slade Prison now on BBC Two, a veritable haven of rest and relaxation. Another chance to see the final explosive episode of 24 in 45 minutes here on BBC Two after The X-Files. Now on BBC Two, as if we hadn't had enough sporting excitement for one day, Sue Barker and Claire Balding with a sneak preview the night before the derby.
Grace Jones expects you to join her for a trip through 1985 in half an hour here on BBC Two. It's best not to upset her, so you better be there.
Another family business for city boss Jerry Robinson to get his teeth into now on BBC Two. Question is this week, just who is the king of the castle? Not long now till BBC Learning Zone opens at 3 o'clock on BBC Two. Time for a breather till then, and if you're heading off to bed, thanks for watching tonight. From me, Matthew Jackson, on behalf of everyone at BBC Two, good night, and if you can, have a good weekend.
Now on BBC Two, if like me you're hooked already, then you know the score. If not, prepare yourselves for Steven Spielberg's Taken.
Boris Karloff is convinced the inhabitants of a Greek island will succumb to an ancient vampire. Creepy horror in 50 minutes here on BBC Two. And Buffy's looking a little drained now after a one-night stand that brought the house down.
And BBC Two's live at Wimbledon now with Sue Barker for the start of Ladies' Day. If you're a Freeview satellite or cable viewer, you can choose which match you want to watch with BBC Eye's interactive service. Just press the red button.
Time to dust off the black chair now on BBC Two. It started and finished, and now it's starting again. John Humphreys introduces the new series of Mastermind. Now BBC Two's heading the field, racing at Haydock.
The Kitchen Invaders are here on BBC Two in half an hour. That's after Rick Stein's Food Heroes now.
Later than Bill, she's fighting for your rights in her satin tights. It's Wonder Woman now on BBC Two, and she's just loving 1978. But watch out for some strobe lighting.
Will gets a job, but don't tell anyone, it's a secret, apparently. Fresh Prince on BBC Two in 20 minutes.
Well, that's all from us here on BBC Two tonight. You can stay up late with us again tomorrow night. Hope you're all getting ready for Christmas. We're one day closer. Have a great weekend from all the team. Good night.
Rugby Union in half an hour on BBC Two. John Inverdale presents the highlights of yesterday's thrilling cup final between Newcastle and Sale. After the latest in the snooker now with Ray Stubbs.
This is BBC Two, and I'm sorry we're having some technical problems. We'll
Second World War survival story in half an hour. The Real Heroes of Telemark with Ray Mears. First classic comedy to celebrate the 40th birthday of BBC Two. From 1964, it's the first ever episode of The Likely Lads.
So we even do dancing these days. Well, so to bed for BBC Two. At least a short rest until 2 a.m. We'll be back with BBC Learning Zone then. So in the meantime, from me, Dean Lydiot, and the late team here in London, thanks for being with us tonight. We'll leave you with those enduring pages from CFAX, some music. And in the meantime, a very good night to you. Good night.
Stop! An actor, even a great, great actor, is nothing without the script. And in these few moments before I face the camera, I will imprint the written word onto my brain. So hush now, as I become one with the script. I'll just make something up.
BBC Two, Pedigree Comedy.
Today with us, Stephen Fry and John Bird are back in absolute power on BBC Two next. Another new comedy series for you now on BBC Two with some strong language. Stephen Fry and John Bird have absolute power.
In our Christmas Eve matinee on BBC Two, Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles at 2:05. And right now, an Oscar-winning Powell and Pressburger.
Bringing the living room to your living room now on BBC Two. A brand new series discovers the history, mystery and trends of the way we live. No place like it. It's home.
Well, now on BBC Two, we're at home in a room where you spend most of the time in the dark. The bedroom, a place of sanctuary, a place to relax, a place to indulge in enjoyable activities, such as sleep.
So now they're leaving BBC Two in style. It's the final show from our favourite husband and wife team. And as usual, there's very strong language from the start.
Was Caesar just a big mouth? What he didn't want you to know in Terry Jones' Barbarians at 9. Now hit the red button as BBC Two returns to Chelsea.
Now, BBC Two's at Reading and Leeds Festival, a little later than planned, but if you're a digital viewer, press red tonight and you can see as much as you like, and that goes for tomorrow night and Sunday from 7 p.m. till 2 in the morning. Now, the show's live, so there could be some strobe lights and strong language.
Well, a slightly earlier than expected finish to the golf means we've some time in hand here on BBC Two, and we're going to spend it at the antiques auction.
That's all from us here at BBC Two. Have a good night. We return at 6 with CBeebies. For motorbike fans, the change in the schedule means that you can watch the Indianapolis MotoGP in 45 minutes here on BBC Two. First, a roundup of the footy this weekend, with Match of the Day 2 introduced by Adrian Child.
Strangled by her own G-string, a chorus girl is murdered and the star of the show is chief suspect. Barbara Stanwyck stars in Lady of Burlesque here on BBC Two in 25 minutes.
It's what really happened on the day the world changed. 9/11, The Conspiracy Files, here at 9. Now, a bestseller on screen. Jack Lemmon stars in Tuesdays with Maury.
Sunday night comedy with Ideal and Family Guy from 11:20. But right now on BBC Two, the final days of a superstar and one of rock's great mysteries. Raise the Roof with Bill, a Family Guy.
Formidable adventures tomorrow night. Stephen Gates dines with the Taliban for cooking in the danger zone at 7, and Bruce Parry is faced with a new daunting initiation to a fierce warrior tribe at 9. That's it for tonight, though. Your directors have been Ben Ackland and Laura Cottam, and I've been your announcer. So from me, Becky Wright, and all the team here on BBC Two, good night.
Talking to fashion designer Matthew Williamson and an exclusive performance from Icelandic band Sigur Rós. It's the Culture Show at 8:15. Now on BBC Two, we didn't see this coming.
We hand over to the CFAX pages now on BBC Two to take you through to the start of the weekend at 6.
Colin Firth falls under the magical spell of Scarlett Johansson in Girl with a Pearl Earring tonight at 9:35. Now on BBC Two, some fantastic moments which they probably hoped would never be shown again, as Clive Anderson relives the funny side of the news.
Dive deep into a marine haven with Coast at 8. First on BBC Two, Rocket Ronnie O'Sullivan up against the jester from Leicester, Mark Selby. What a prospect for the second semi-final of the UK Snooker Championship.
Now on BBC Two, Hal and the boys are left holding the baby as our Malcolm in the Middle double bill continues.
So, a musical evening is in store. At 12:35, it's Later with Jules. Now, though, on BBC Two and also on BBC HD, live from Camden and Liverpool, it's the BBC Electric
A powerful new invention awaits in the first of a double bill of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Newsnight now on BBC Two with Jeremy Paxman.
Live athletics later, the European Cross Country Championships at 12:30. Now though, meet BBC Two's Candymen. Live athletics to come, the European Cross Country Championships just 15 minutes away after BBC Two hops across to Irish shores.
This is BBC Two. Now, Newsnight with Kirsty Walk.
Proving she's not one to be embarrassed. Now on BBC Two and BBC HD, some strong language in the Sarah Millican television programme.
A second visit to the RHS Flower Show, Tatton Park, in half an hour on BBC Two. Before then, well-travelled objects and their trade secrets on Flog It with Paul Martin.
We're headed for intensive care when a retriever is badly injured after a road accident. Can the young vets act in time? That's in half an hour here on BBC Two, after Eggheads.
Now on BBC Two, Newsnight with Emily Maitlis.
The world's first iron bridge is in Michael Portillo's sights when his current railway adventure visits Telford in an hour. On BBC Two now, more of nature's weirdest events.
Now is the time to make plans for the year ahead, and Monty Don is on the case tonight. Gardener's World here at 9:30. But now on BBC Two, exploring the beautiful south of wild Wales.
Put your money where your mouth is in half an hour. Arriving first on BBC Two, the 16:45 stopping service from Telford to Wrexham.
Looking back at 2014 with some strong language and adult humour now on BBC Two. It's time to remember those moments that had us all talking, and no more so, thank goodness, than Charlie Brooker. Yes, those outrageous bits of telly we all want to see again. Charlie Brooker's 2014 wife in an hour on BBC Two. Now, he wanted to get close, but has Gordon taken things a little too far?
More contestants pushing it to the edge at 1 o'clock here on BBC Two after BBC Newsroom Live.
Can't wait. Well, the story behind a certain fork handles routine, the Two Ronnies sketchbook, in half an hour on BBC Two. But we start our Two Ronnies night with Ronnie B, or should I say Norman Stanley Fletcher, getting a new cellmate.
Newsnight now on BBC Two with Emily Maitlis.
Live World Championship snooker now on BBC Two as we head back to the Crucible for the conclusion of the second semi-final, introduced by Hazel Irvine.
B! B! C! 2!
Time for a Wimbledon warm-up here on BBC Two with some special memories. The atmosphere was electric and the match turned out to be an all-time great.
Now on BBC Two, Newsnight with Evan Davis.
A stack of Family Guy to make sure Sundays don't stop here on BBC Two from 10:15 after some strong language now from the man who knows how to party.
Those special goodness gracious me giggles to come in an hour, right after we take to the tracks for India season. Get on board with BBC Two as our journey continues on the world's busiest railway.
Well, we don't have to go far to find horror now on BBC Two. It's Living Next Door. As we've made it to the witching hour this Halloween night, expect some violent scenes, very strong language, and Colin Farrell. It's Fright Night. Yes, thank you, we get the idea.
Now, picking up the fun from BBC One as Pudsey pops across to us here on BBC Two with Children in Need Night live from the Queen Vic in Albert Square. Now on BBC Two, the dynasties, myths, traditions and revolution. Another chance to see Michael Wood start to unravel the stunning story of China.
Good morning, welcome to Thursday on BBC Two. Coming up in 45 minutes, a couple split over their decision to move to Oz in Wanted Down Under Revisited. Right after more food for thought.
Can science help to find love? Horizon investigates the success of online dating in half an hour here on BBC Two. Now, we meet not only the ponies, but the loyal people of Shetland in an island parish.
The Great British Sewing Bee is getting intimate with lingerie in an hour, but it's up close and personal with the wildlife first on BBC Two for the welcome return of Springwatch.
BBC Two now. David Harewood examines the opportunities for black people to make it to the top in today's Britain. Stand by for his personal take on the question, will Britain ever have a black Prime Minister?
With Edward the Confessor dead, there's a crown to be won. Dan Snow looks back to 1066, a year to conquer England. That's in an hour after Dragon's Den.
Tonight on Dragon's Den.
Gay Britannia, passion, love and secrets entwined together in two love stories from Patrick Gale. With some strong language and some sexual scenes, man in an orange shirt.
Well, first there was Swap Shop, then Saturday Superstore, going live and live and kicking. But now, live on BBC Two and CBBC, bring on the slime. It's time for the Saturday mashup.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Ooh, yeah. 'Tis the season to be jolly.
Well-known alumni with fingers on the buzzers for Christmas University Challenge in an hour. First, it's a Scream on BBC Two. Get ready to laugh out loud at the very first festive special of Dad's Army.
Ding dong, merrily on high. In heaven the bells are ringing.
An intriguing story retold tonight at 9:30. Leonardo DiCaprio leads the star cast in The Great Gatsby on BBC Two. Right now, the pressure's on for a host of famous faces.
The holly and the ivy, when they are both full grown.
Leonardo DiCaprio stars in the tale of young millionaire Jay Gatsby. Get drawn into a circle in an hour. Chris Packham now on BBC Two, keeping an eye out for seasonally strange goings-on.
Hark, the herald angels sing, glory to.
Good old Christmas night gospel sing-along to be had with Tom Jones and Beverly Knight tomorrow at 9. The night before that continues now with a network premiere on BBC Two, with some scenes which some viewers may find upsetting, obsession and tragedy in a classic tale retold. The Great Gatsby.
Now, you might have noticed BBC Two is looking pretty amazing this morning. Bet you can't take your eyes off us. And right now, from the power of seduction to the power of deduction.
It's all a hoax as far as John Paul Getty Sr. is concerned. What will it take to make him believe? With very strong language, Trust now on BBC Two.
Tonight's early evening movie features one of the world's finest actors playing literature's greatest detective. Ian McKellen stars as Mr. Holmes at 6:20. But right now on BBC Two, I have nothing to declare but their genius.
A living legend marking Murray Walker's 95th birthday with all the excitement and enthusiasm he brought to motor racing. Murrayisms included.
Fast Lane, Murray Walker, turbocharged tonight at 7. On BBC Two now, the sky's the limit.
Now on BBC Two, with strong language and adult humour, Hendy and Stokes are back together again, where they belong. Now on BBC Two, with very strong language and adult humour, comedy stakeout, Aussie style. Stokes finds himself happily in the driver's seat. A double bill of Aussie comedy No Activity coming up in half an hour on BBC Two. Now with some strong language, a Mock the Week mashup.
There you go, the lengths they'll go to. Join them in America in an hour here on BBC Two. Starting another new series now, here's a cooking contest for the whole family. Back inside the House of Assad now on BBC Two. The new president and his first lady face some major problems from all sides, with scenes you may find upsetting.
The case that ended capital punishment in the UK now here on BBC Two. Wonderfully acted by Richard Attenborough and John Hurt. They open the door to 10 Rillington Place.
Prime Minister's questions on politics live in just 15 minutes here on BBC Two, right after an update first on the latest BBC News.
Now stay up to date with more on the main stories on BBC Two with BBC Newsroom Live.
The hard-won success of the black actor now here on BBC Two. With very strong language, sheer grit and determination, we celebrate Black Hollywood.
It's do or die in Franklin's world, and time to step things up a gear in Snowfall at 10:45. First, with some strong language, we go all PC with Sandy.
Important lessons for the cutest of Alaskan cubs. Bears here on BBC Two in half an hour. They are so cute. Ready for a musical extravaganza first, though?
When a family man kills an intruder in his home, he's racked with guilt, but his nightmare is far from over. Expect some violent scenes, strong language, and scenes which you may find disturbing, as Michael C. Hall and Don Johnson star. It's Cold in July.
(1918) and learning new languages, back in time for school tonight at 8. Now on BBC Two, Secret Wartime Years for Flog It too.
Well, the Hairy Biker's Asian adventure continues in South Korea at 11:30. First on BBC Two, some seasonal inspiration from the best bites from the Saturday Kitchen.
Gordon and Lyra meet again as he tries to discover how she copes with unusual weather. The Polar Bear Family and Me, next here on BBC Two. Now, to warmer climes.
Now, with some strong language on BBC Two, things are about to get rather strange.
Only one chef from the southwest will make it through to the Great British Menu Final when they face the Judges' Chamber tonight at 8 here on BBC Two.
In a landmark new series now on BBC Two, Professor Brian Cox shines a light on the strange history of our solar system, the spellbinding story of the planets.
Growing up, Sunday night telly was just the worst, and now look at it. Happy Father's Day from BBC Two as the mother of all motoring shows returns with a brand new lineup.
Norway versus Australia now here on BBC Two. With a change to the bill time, we now head over to the FIFA Women's World Cup. We journey to the solar system now here on BBC Two with a change to the build time. Brian Cox will make sure you know exactly what our night skies have got to offer.
Taking on the establishment in the most tragic of circumstances now on BBC Two, the powerful and inspiring story of a mum's fight for justice for her murdered daughter, with some scenes some viewers may find upsetting.
A little later than billed after our extra football, now on BBC Two, from Oliver Twist to train spotting. Very strong language as we look at class in the novels that shaped our world.
Imagine dancing the Nutcracker, fairy tale stuff, inside the Royal Ballet at midday. On BBC Two now, let's crack open the champagne.
You're watching BBC Two. This is BBC Two.
£9 tonight here on BBC Two, a chaotic day caught on mobile phones and police body cameras as a mob threatened politicians, making headlines around the world. That's 4 hours at the capital, tonight at 9. Right now, Politics Live. Bill Turnbull, clever so-and-so so far, but how far can a so-and-so go? Richard Osman's House of Games tonight at 6. Rob's your man right now.
Now on BBC Two, containing some scenes which some viewers may find upsetting, some violent scenes and some scenes of a sexual nature. It's episode 1 of the psychological thriller Vienna Blood.
So the weekend Strictly Dance Floor spooktacular to look forward to on It Takes Two in half an hour after a week of quizzing comes to a conclusion on BBC Two.
Poached, steamed or hard-boiled? Surely the eggheads know the answer to this question in 45 minutes. First, Brains on Board on BBC Two.
And now on BBC Two, as the seasons change and the leaves begin to fall, it's time for Autumn Watch.
Dave, making waves at a bar mitzvah, here after a fresh-boxed and delightfully funny look at the week just gone.
Floggett visits Longleat at 5:15 today. But now on BBC Two, Fiona's flying the flag for the Antiques Roadshow.
Now on BBC Two, stories and relatives and a race to be found as the hunt is on.
A collection of Picasso ceramics in Leicester with Floggett in an hour on BBC Two. After we celebrate rural businesses first, Kate Humble goes back to the land.
A chance to feel closer to nature. The nights of nesting on the sofa with BBC Two start here, and a new series, Autumn Watch.
Kicking off Monday with some antiques on the go for sure in Floggett in an hour. Now on to Kate's out and about with a new land to get thrilled with.
If it made the news, Frankie Boyle's putting it all to rights. His New World Order continues at 10. Now on BBC Two, putting some reason in the random.
Frankie Boyle and guests try to cobble together a new world order on BBC Two after some strong language, a comic, his mum and his digital delegates.
Friday Christmas films on BBC Two start right now. Too early for mince pies maybe, but the perfect day for fireworks and a premiere. Step into the heart of the holidays.
In 1939, and the captain of a British warship is ready for revenge in the cruel sea.
There is nothing like stand-up comedy. Take your seats and be ready for some strong language and adult humour now on BBC Two. It's time for the new series of Live at the Apollo. Ahead of Armistice Day tomorrow, back to the tumult of the trenches. Tonight's late film on BBC Two with some strong language, Journey's End.
Frankie doing what Frankie does best now on BBC Two, taking the week's headlines to pieces with some strong language and adult humour.
It's official, Christmas starts here. We're switching on the lights here on BBC Two and all set for music night. Thin Lizzy in concert at 11:30. But first, their legendary frontman, some strong language in the life and career of Phil Lynott. With Thin Lizzy. A star-studded roll call and just a few names you might know now on BBC Two. Some strong language and discriminatory language as music night continues with the Irish rock story.
A chef who plays with all the senses now plays with time. BBC Two goes back to the noughties on an emotional journey for the Fat Duck family.